if you are a genuine helpful person, whether you're a man or a woman, but you tend to feel like you often are not appreciated, you get taken advantage of, then one of the most important things you will have to learn how to do is to stop helping the helpless. So that sounds really bad, but let's clarify what I mean. First of all, what do I not mean? If you see a kitten on the road or somewhere and it's hungry, I don't mean you shouldn't help the kitten. Or if you see a child that's crying, lost, can't find its mom, I don't mean you should be like, no, I don't care about you. That's not what I mean by helpless. Here's another example of what do I not mean by helpless. If one of your friends calls you or your girlfriend calls you and she's like, hey, I'm in a really bad situation. All of a sudden my car stopped working. I don't know how to make it start. I'm running late. Would you at all be willing to come over, help me with my car, give me a ride, whatever it is? That person is asking you for help, but they are not helpless because they're using agency. They're doing what they can directly to get what they need, and they're involving you. Now, if somebody's asking you for help all the time, that gets into a different territory, but that's not what this video is about. We're talking about people, adults, who are helpless. So let me give you another example of what that might look like. Let's say, again, your girlfriend, or it could be your mom. It probably starts with your mom, really. Calls you up, and you're like, hey, what's up? And she's like, well, things are okay, I guess. And you start feeling like, okay, something's wrong. And you're like, well, are you sure? And she's like, yeah, mostly. Well, actually, my car isn't working. And then you're like, oh, okay, do you need me to come over and fix it? And you're like, well, you don't really have to. So this person now is helpless, right? Or somebody's complaining about events that are happening and they're not doing anything about it. And what they're actually doing is they're trying to get you to take responsibility for their problem. That's what I mean by not helping the helpless. There's people out in the world who have learned, usually from early experiences in childhood and growing up, that they cannot and should not ask for things directly, but instead of being very independent and being like, I'm not going to ask anybody, that's like the avoidant person, they've learned to act helpless and be helpless, and then to broadcast distress. So if you're talking to someone, if it could be a man, could be a woman, could be a romantic partner or a relative, and you feel bad, you feel like they need help, but they're not saying it. They're not directly saying, hey, please help me with this thing. I have this problem. Then they are the kind of helpless person that you have to learn not to help. And here's why. So first of all, what is this person doing? This person is not acting with agency. They're not taking responsibility for their life. And when someone has a problem, but they're not taking responsibility on it, what they're doing is, as I mentioned before, they're putting their problem on you. And they're putting it on you in like the worst way possible. It'd be one thing to be like, hey, please help me with this. Please help me with this. That's annoying. But if you're a sensitive person and they're doing it indirectly, it's much worse because you feel this like pull, you feel this urge, I have to help them. And that kind of pull, that urge, that's meant for children and kittens. So if you have kittens or children, you're supposed to use those feelings and that pull to help genuinely helpless creatures. But these adults have learned to weaponize empathy against you. And again, it may not be conscious. They may not be thinking of doing this, I'm going to act helpless and this guy will help me. Some people are like that. Some people are like that, but most people are not. And what they're doing is they're preying on your sensitivity. They're preying on your empathy. And more likely than not, again, you have like some kind of matching trauma. You have some kind of matching issue where instead of telling them like, hey, what's wrong with you? Screw off. You're like, oh, I have to help you. I have to help you. So if you find yourself in this situation where you're around somebody or maybe several people and you feel this urge to help them, you have to not do that. You have to stop and think and reflect and be like, okay, did they ask me for help? Did they take ownership of their situation? Are they being direct? Because what's going to happen if they're not direct, one, you're never going to get the thanks and appreciation you want. If you and I've experienced this. I was that person. That's why I'm making this video. I would help people, and then when I turn around and say, "Hey, can you help me with this?" and I'm pretty direct, they look at me like, "Why are you asking me? Like what? Like why? Who are you? Why would you ask me for help? I'm not the kind of person that gives help." And then, like an idiot, I would say, "Well, but I helped you with this," and they would say, "Well, but I didn't ask you to." And on some level, this is true. They didn't directly ask, but what you have to understand is that by acting with distress, by sharing bad things, by sharing problems, people are indirectly asking you for help. Think about it. Would you ever talk to someone about your problem? They have some deep issue. Would you ever just be like, oh, I'm really, really broke. And this is you talking to a person with money. You wouldn't do that. If the problem is truly yours, you don't generally talk about it. You may ask advice like, hey, how do I like stop being broke? How do I make money? Whatever. But you don't go and emote. Emoting is what children do. That's how they get attention of their parents. And so this person, even though they weren't directly consciously asking you for help, they were asking you for help indirectly. They were pulling at your empathy. So first of all, don't take the excuse that they weren't asking you for help. On the other hand, because they didn't ask you directly, it was actually you that decided to help them. It was you. And they don't owe you anything. They, in a sense, don't have, it's hard to say whether this is right or wrong, but they, in some way, genuinely don't have an obligation because you proposed it. You're like, hey, man, can I take you out? Can I do this for you? Can I do this other thing for you? And the person's like, oh, okay, I guess. And that doesn't create a strong obligation on people. So if you're the kind of person that's giving a lot of help and feeling bad, I guarantee that if you look at it objectively, the people around you are not being direct. They're not taking ownership. They're people with low agency that are kind of manipulating you into helping them, and you're allowing them to manipulate you. So guys, girls, whoever, stop. Whenever you want to help, stop. Make sure the person is directly, genuinely, like wholeheartedly saying, look, I need help with this thing. Please help me. And ideally, here's what I can do for you in return. Even if it's something small, it's like, hey, man, can you help me move? I'm going to buy you some beers. Beers are not worth helping somebody move in a financial sense, but at least that person's being overt in their transactions. And if you're the kind of guy that finds yourself in a situation, especially if you're a guy, you have to read the book No More Mr. Nice Guy, because he talks about covert contracts. That's when you offer someone help with the unstated expectation that you get something back. And usually the kind of people you offer help to are the ones that don't want to give you anything back. They're the ones that are playing this game of like weaponizing empathy. So this is getting a little bit long, but again, it's very important. This seems like it's about people are mean, people are bad, people are like taking advantage of you, and they are, but it's actually you. It's you who is allowing people to take advantage of themselves, and it's you who has to change. It's you who has to face this in yourself and think about, why am I desperate to help people who act helpless? All right. I know the answer isn't here, but this will give you the process and the place to start looking. I hope it was helpful. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments below, and I'll see you again. Bye-bye.